Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to have a little fun with the Anbernic RG ARC-D, but before we do anything else, I'm going to open up the box here and tell you what I've changed about this handheld since the last video, if I can open this box up. So initially, the handheld comes with, at least mine came with, two cards. This is the operating system card for the Linux operating system. We're using Android again today, but came with another card, this unbranded card that had games in it, 128 gigabytes worth. Of course, if you watched the last video or fast forwarded through it, you may have noticed that there were some frustrations caused by this card, so games not working, things like that. So we have ditched this card, and what I did instead was I loaded up a 64 gigabyte Samsung card with some of my personal collection. So we're not relying on things from Anbernic anymore. This is the personal stash here. And to start off, I have a kind of unwritten rule on this channel about testing games on handhelds. If a handheld can actually play or load up Star Ocean till the end of time, then it must do so. Of course, last time I did not test any PlayStation 2 games on this hardware because, well, there really wasn't anything on that crappy Anbernic card that would provide a good test. So I did put a couple of PlayStation 2 games on this device now. So I haven't configured a front end other than the Anbernic default front end, mainly because I don't really plan to play many different systems on here. This is kind of a purpose-built device for older Sega games and maybe a few other things. But I did put a little bit of PlayStation 2 on here just for fun. I don't really recommend this as a serious system for playing PlayStation 2 games. But let's take a look, and we'll start up the Anbernic front end now that I remember how to do it. And I put a couple of PlayStation 2 games on here. Let's see how the RG ARC-D fares with Star Ocean till the end of time. Good luck to us in that. This is the version of Aether SX2 that came with the device. I didn't do any changing of that because, frankly, I don't plan to do much PlayStation 2 gaming on here, so it wasn't worth the time to bother. I do have it so you can see the gameplay here a little bit better rather than just having to squint at the screen. In case you're wondering, no, I didn't actually solve the issue, the Anbernic jank that we called it last time, of the game going out sideways out of the video output. Instead, I kind of solved it the old-fashioned way by rotating the screen within OBS. So I cheated a little bit, in other words. But as you can see, the game is kind of running, well, not all that well. Hey, we're running at half speed. So, good start to it, right? So, I haven't gone that far into this game because you can kind of see, well, we're getting 80% performance here. But I do have a save state just a little bit further past the introduction. Oh, what did I do? Okay, I actually need to just hit the cable. But you can see Fate running around here. He's not running terribly quickly. We can play Star Ocean till the end of time at anywhere from half speed to 80% speed if we're lucky. Not the optimal Star Ocean till the end of time experience. We're not going to get to combat on this because I would have to play a lot further through this game than I want to. But you can see that the performance is definitely not too great here. If this was a turn-based RPG, you might actually be able to kind of play it. But as it is right now, you know, running glacially slow, even with all the underclocking options
Hello there. What can I do for you?
that we can actually use here. Yeah, we're not doing a whole lot of Star Ocean till the end of time on the Anbernic RG ARC-D. So I think watching the flirt talk very slowly is about all we need to do to see that, hey, the game runs, but just because it runs doesn't mean we actually want to play Star Ocean, at least Star Ocean 3, on this device. So let's get out of this. I hit the wrong thing. I meant to hit the F button. So let's exit the game. And something we may have a little bit more hope on is Persona 3. The only thing about Persona 3 is sometimes it flags the music. So let's get out of this view and just do this the old-fashioned way by looking at the screen. So we can still look at the screen. I'm just going to mute the audio from the game itself when it starts up. That way we can take a look without YouTube fussing about the music from the game. I actually have played this for a little while because while it is not the best Persona experience out there, or even the second or third best, you actually can play a turn-based game even if it's a little bit slower than normal. So it is loading, and we'll just mute that for now so we can just load the game up. As you can see, you can kind of run it. It's a little bit less demanding than Star Ocean 3. So let's load up a save game here. Not running too well in this particular menu. Yeah, I found that on PlayStation 2, the load and save options really just tank the frame rate. So here's one where I haven't done any exploration of Tartarus yet, but I'm right there. If there's any spoilers in here for this game, they're very minor. Of course, this game is ancient, so yeah, no major spoilers here if you haven't played Persona 3 yet. But that other than that Tartarus exists and Personas are a thing. Oh, we got the load. So this is just before exploring Tartarus for the very first time. You can see he's not running super fast here, but we can actually go in and fight a few battles, and you can actually kind of play this game. Again, not the best experience, but we'll take a look inside Tartarus and see how this game goes. And I did hit the button one more time. I was wondering why it didn't load. So obviously no upscaling here. At the very least, let's see if we can get into a battle here. Can you hear me? No, because I muted your audio because of the background music. All right, let's go fight a battle. Come on, stop talking. I was going to say it's spinning that really fast, but then it slowed right down. So not the fastest experience out there, but if Mitsuru will stop running her mouth, then we can actually get into a battle. transitions, of course, chug mightily here. No, at least we can skip this. So again, we're not getting the optimal Persona 3 experience here. I think you'd have better luck with Persona 3 Portable, but you actually can run the full version of Persona 3 here, albeit kinda slowly. But again, for a turn-based RPG, even if it's slow, you can still play it, unlike an action-based system like Star Ocean Till the End of Time. You can at least actually play the game here. I think we'll do one more battle and then we'll just move on to something else, because you're getting an idea of what sort of performance we can get on the ARC-D here. I think he might have hit me first. No, I don't want to know more because I already know what their weaknesses are. All right, let's do an all-out attack, and then we'll call it for Persona 3, and we will look at some games that actually run a little bit better on the ARC-D. But we did win this battle, very slowly. The stunning victory is that this actually runs at all on this handheld. So, we've looked at PlayStation 2, which is something you probably shouldn't do on the RG ARC-D. Let's actually look at stuff that is more, suited to this handheld. So we've got some of my Genesis collection here. We have Star Control, the first 12 megabit game. Really popular title on computers back then. And it's actually still a good, fun title to play around with. And of course, Lightning Force, we'll try it again because it's a good game and we can actually see it now. So let's take a look at some. Oh, wrong way. A little bit of Genesis action here. We'll start off with Lightning Force. This time, we'll have some sound. Because the soundtrack of this game really is good. So just a little quick run here. Won't play it for very long because the video will be long enough as it is, but we'll give it a shot. Good at paying attention. half looking at the game and half looking at the monitor. So I'm not going to be doing very well. Could have dodged the extra lane. Oh, there we go. Now it's about time anyway. So you can see the game runs pretty well here. The controls actually, by default, are mapped correctly. A, B, and C do the correct things. So let's back out and have a look at another game, see what we can make of some of this other stuff. Got a bunch of Sonics from the Sonic and Knuckles combined with the other games that you have to install the combination separately. Oh, there we go, Star Control. This is a game I played more on computers than actually on the Genesis, but the Genesis version is fine.
Launch fighters, launch fighters, launch fighters.
He didn't last very long, did he? Of course, I guess it's a little unfair of me making the Earthquake Dreadnought. But this is just a quick demo anyway. Here, I'll let him get close to me. Too much of a power differential there, I think. Oop. Only had one crew left, but still got him. So obviously you can have a good bit of fun with Genesis here because the controls are essentially laid out perfectly for Genesis games. But I thought of another system that would do pretty well for the ARC-D. And that would be the TurboGrafx 16. I have a pretty good collection of TurboGrafx 16 games. These are just the cards. I actually do have some of the CDs too. But lots of good games, lots of arcade ports from the TurboGrafx 16. And if you look at the controller for the TurboGrafx 16, you'll see that there's a turbo button for buttons 1 and 2. And so you can have like auto fire built in. And that kind of lines up pretty well with these. So you can have regular firing here on A and B, and you can set the turbo fire to X and Y. So you can play around with auto fire. And a lot of these games actually on the TurboGrafx, I think, assume that you're using auto fire. So PC Engine, of course, on here. But so I've got all those games in that big stack transferred onto here. A lot of good arcade ports for the TurboGrafx 16. So stuff like Galaga 90, which is called Galaga 88 elsewhere. They just called it 90, I guess, because it took a little while to release it in the US. But we'll take a look at that. So just a quick game of Galaga 88, Galaga 90. Watch what I'm doing. This would be nicer if I had my other ship. Well, that's one way to end the game. So a little bit of Galaga 90 here. So there are quite a few other games here. Parasol Stars, brought over by Working Designs to the US. Back then, there were a company that would bring over games that nobody else wanted to publish in the US, although this was one of my favorite TurboGrafx games. I could play this for a long time, but I'm not going to. Just a little short demo here. The game of Parasol Stars can go on a long time. So a lot of these levels are little puzzles where if you stand in the right place, you win. Oops. And that's probably enough of that for right now. You can play this game a long time. So, I think a lot of these games on the Turbo Express work really well with the ARC-D. It plays them well, and the button layout is conducive to how the original controller was. It's not exactly the same, but you can see the buttons are similar sized, and you can also take advantage of this turbo type feature here. So, a little bit of PC Engine, Turbo Graphics 16, whatever you want to call it. But there is one other system that I want to take a look at here, which is actually one of the big reasons I even got this console in the first place. Let's take a look. So I mentioned before that I had a Pioneer Laser Active system, which, as you can tell by the controller, is a system that is capable of running Sega games, Genesis games. But given that it is a Laserdisc player, an obvious choice of games to collect if you happen to have a Pioneer Laser Active would be Sega CD titles. So back in the day, I got a pretty decent collection of Sega CD games. Here I've just pulled a couple of the boxes off the shelf. So Lunar Eternal Blue here, which I actually progressed a little bit into the game so you can see some of the gameplay. And we got Mortal Kombat here. I have about 30-something Sega CD games in my little collection. So the funny thing about Sega CD is that it doesn't show up in Anbernic's own front end. So unless you want to install another front end, you basically are probably going to want to go through RetroArch here. So we'll just start that up. And, you know, this is not the favorite menu in the world, but once you've played some games, you can just get games out of the history. So you can see there I accidentally loaded the wrong core one time, so it's sitting there in the history trying to run Lunar Eternal Blue on the Amiga, which doesn't go well, as you might imagine. Oh, I think I touched the screen. So let's go to history. And let's take a look at Lunar Eternal Blue with some actual gameplay. Like the old Sega CD boot up here. Takes a minute. Remember, the Sega CD was, the CD drive was not exactly the fastest thing in the world back in the day. So in my initial video, I didn't sit through the 20-minute beginning so you could see some actual gameplay, so here it is. I definitely recommend the PlayStation version over the original Sega CD these days because there are a lot of, you might say, creature comforts that the PlayStation version has that this one doesn't. Still, if you're into old school 16-bit RPGs, this is actually a pretty good one. Notice you can't move diagonally on the map. And that's probably enough of that for a while. So I would save, but one of the problems with the English localization of Lunar Eternal Blue was that they started charging experience points to save, which was a pretty dumb addition in retrospect. Let's look at a different game. So I had Mortal Kombat out here. Let's take a look at some Mortal Kombat for something a little bit more arcadey. I think I have that in my history here. So I've been trying some games. There we go. Boy, look at that video.
Raiden.
We'll just do a quick game. All 6 buttons do work. So this is functioning as a 6-button controller for the game here. Fatality. But you get the idea. So this does actually support all 6 buttons, and they all... I did have to do a little bit of remapping for the Sega CD games just to get all the buttons corrected. And if there's interest, I can show my configuration on that. But here we're just doing a little bit of game demo, but you can see that the 6-button aspect actually does work here. But that's probably enough fooling around with the ARC-D for today. In case you're wondering, this was just power, so I don't have to worry about the battery running out or anything. And I just have this hooked to a capture card. And again, I had to play some tricks with the capture card to see the screen oriented in the right way, because this device is still outputting the screen sideways, but at least I could turn it around with OBS so we could actually see a little bit better what's on the screen rather than trying to squint at this on the camera. And if you noticed any lag in between the camera image and the image that was up here, that is most likely the capture card, but not a whole lot I can do about that really. But in case you're wondering, oh, there was a little bit of a lag between the image on the screen and the image over here, that was why. But hope you guys have enjoyed playing around a bit with the ARC-D. I think the ARC-D is a good choice if you want to do, at least what I'm going to be doing with it is Sega CD, and TurboGrafx. I think the system is excellent for that. Works pretty well, has a good control layout for those. For PlayStation 2, PlayStation Portable, actually even PlayStation, I don't necessarily recommend this because the buttons are all wrong. This will play PlayStation no problem, but there are hundreds of handhelds out there that have the proper button layout for PlayStation games. This one, perfect for those Sega systems I mentioned. Maybe not so much for Saturn just because of issues running the actual games. I actually do have a Saturn. I just never really got into collecting for it that much, so I only have a few games. It's not on my list of systems that I love to emulate just because it just never was really all that interesting. It's a bit of history, but I enjoyed the PlayStation a lot more, and I enjoyed the older and even newer Sega systems like the Genesis and the Dreamcast a lot more than the actual Saturn. So this one may have a little bit of trouble with Saturn just because of Saturn. The emulator is a lot harder to run. But the other Sega systems, this thing's pretty good. But yeah, no PlayStation 2 on this. Not unless you have a whole lot of patience. So, hope you enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed, please leave a like. Helps my videos get found by YouTube's nebulous search engine algorithms. If you want to see more handheld content, remember to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next video.